Hey, Drew, you ready to do another office hours hangout?
Yes, I am. Let's talk about Mongo.
All right, yeah, absolutely. Definitely want to talk about a lot of great new news from ObjectRocket, and we probably aren't the best qualified people to do that, so we
We are
brought along a
definitely
friend.
not. We did.
Hey, everybody, say hi to Tim Banks from ObjectRocket. Tim, how you doing today?
Good, Alan. How you doing?
Oh, not too shabby, not too shabby. It's great to have you on the show. We've featured ObjectRocket several times on our show before, but we really want to make sure that we only reach all the time. A lot of really cool new things to talk about this week, so we're glad to have you joining us.
Oh, my pleasure to be here. And I just want to address the monkey in the room first. Alan and I actually are not brothers. I know we get that a lot, but no, we are in fact not related.
Yeah, as far as we know.
Believe you.
I think Drew's on to us. No, hey, yeah, it's great to have you here, Tim. And I'm not just saying that because you've got an awesome mustache. I'm saying that because you've got a lot of great information to share with us. And real quick, Tim, why don't you just introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself and how long you've been at ObjectRocket.
Sure. So I'm Tim Banks. I have been here with ObjectRocket now for just over a year and a half. Kind of came from the big corporate world of very large servers and a lot of paperwork and a lot of banging your head up against the wall. But I come with about 15 years experience in the DevOps and systems architecture and systems engineering world, and now applying this to our pool. To come up basically with new and better ways to offer people ways to give us their data and then get back something useful out of it.
Absolutely. No, that's great. That's exactly what ObjectRocket is. That's a great way to surmise it.
Data is only good if you use it. The better that data is.
Absolutely.
So,
that was one of the big things that we talked about with John Ingates, the CTO here at Rackspace, a couple weeks ago. Was getting the most out of your data, and I'm sure that ObjectRocket can factor very well into that. Not just with the big data side of things, but even MongoDB, Redis, things like that are going to be useful for a lot of people. So.
Yeah, I think one of the things that we've always done here at ObjectRocket is kind of finding a way to make it as simple as possible for you to do something complex. You're gonna give you have a lot of data. You have it in odd different ways. You've chosen to use MongoDB to keep it in. I mean, MongoDB is no one has ever confused MongoDB for being easy to manage. I mean, that's no secret in the industry. So we try to make it as easy for you as possible. Hopefully the whole idea is we give you a connect string, you send us a query, and then you get back the data and the result that you wanted quicker than anybody else does it.
And speed is definitely valuable there. Performance is one of those things that, as our attention spans kind of fade into the non-existent, it's absolutely crucial that you can deliver quality data quickly. So performance is one of those things that everyone seems to be looking for, and the better it's delivered, the more likely your customers are going to be happy, and happy customers usually leads to success.
We all like happy customers.
Oh yeah, and it's one of the things we hung our hat on early is to give you the fastest, the fastest MongoDB experience you're going to get. Hence the rocket in our name. We started off going with a very kind of customized hardware setup to speed I/O out as much as possible, speed the network along as much as possible. Offer things like with the direct connect from AWS that you can, so you don't have a hang-up if you don't necessarily have your apps hosted with Rackspace, but just everything we can do to make it as fast as possible. But some of the other things that we're doing now go beyond just giving you fast performance as the only option. One of the big things that we trotted out last year that we've made improvements on this year is our dedicated MongoDB offerings. Because before everything was multi-tenant. You got a container in here with everybody, and you were in there with it could be a couple of hundred other users, kind of in a multi-tenant, standard multi-tenant environment. But people that wanted to be able to ramp it up even faster or have a little bit more reliability as far as to their specific setup, we offered a custom setup, which is anything from from a replica set worth of data bricks all the way out to entire stacks, load balancers, top of rack switches, the whole nine. And it's been really exciting. We've gotten some major players on there. Some of our larger customers are extremely happy with it. So it's pretty exciting to kind of see that, the idea of, just taking our entire setup, shrinking it down to one cabinet and putting your name on the side of it. And people have been very, very excited about what they've gotten out of it. So.
Well, I know that there's a handful of quality options when it comes to actually getting into the nuts and bolts of hosting Mongo with Rackspace and with ObjectRocket. But you mentioned at the beginning that managing Mongo is not necessarily the easiest of options. So someone who is either considering adopting Mongo or has adopted Mongo, what's usually the drivers in that decision making that gets people at least to the technology? And then we can dig in a little bit more into how that technology is deployed and how we can help manage it if it's deployed in the ObjectRocket world.
Sure. So I think one of the big drivers that gets people to realize that they kind of want to get out of the managing Mongo themselves is scale. Mongo and pretty much any database is easy when it's small. You learn the commands, you learn to add basic indexes, and it's fine. But when it starts growing it, and really the backbreaker is at the point which you realize you need to shard your data. The choosing of a shard key is extremely important. What schema you want to, as far as where your data is going to be, what's going to be more important, what's going to get hit more. There's a lot of factors that go into that. It's to figure out, how you implement that shard key, where do you spread everything out, what size is the right size to go to. Because you have a terabyte of data doesn't mean you put it on two 500 gigabyte shards. You have to be able to really intelligently and analytically look at that, figure out where things need to be, figure out the best way to shard it, and then you have to manage all those shards. So every time you split a shard in, your management overhead has increased exponentially. So that's one of the things that we've been able to manage through both expertise and automation, to take the headache out of that, where if you don't know what to do, if you don't know what your shard key should look like, if you really don't know much about Mongo, we do. So we can, we'll have the conversation with you if you're just starting out with your first actual production data set, or if you've been doing it for a while and you've got 50, 60, 100, 500 gigabytes, and you're like, well, this is becoming monstrous. How do we take care of this? We'll have those conversations with you too. We've got a wealth of MongoDB experience in the house. Some of our I don't know if you ever talked to Kim before here, but she's just amazing at just understanding. She's like a Mongo whisperer. She goes up and listens to your database and talks about his childhood, and then they cry for a while and everything's better. She's just fantastic. But she leads a whole DBA team here, people that are like that. So we can really get in and figure out what you need. If you don't know, or if you do know what you want, we can help you get that along, so that we can really get you out of the point of having to worry about all the Mongo's quirks.
I don't think we've ever had Kim on. I think that she's busy whispering at everybody's infrastructure, and we haven't been able to steal away for that. But no, it's great that we have those type of experts that are available and able to help our customers in that way. And it's interesting too, because we are our own customers on a lot of these things, and right. So we're not just helping our own customers, but we're helping ourselves do things better, which in turn helps our other customers better. So it's very good to have so many good helpers on there.
Well, just looking back at some of our back catalog with conversations we've had with people at ObjectRocket, I mean, we're certainly not the ideal people to drive the conversation. The deep expertise is on the ObjectRocket side, but you're probably the fifth, sixth person we've talked to, and you're still we're still finding so many more just guru level experts on a variety of technologies, but Mongo is definitely one of those. That the mine is deep, and we're going to be able to continue to get more expertise from the vast a variety of minds over there in the building that you are currently occupying. So we're definitely excited about this conversation, but certainly you're not the end-all be-all of genius that's over there in the ObjectRocket office. We've got plenty of people who have a deep well of experience and deep well of understanding, and we're looking forward to talking to more people.
Yeah, it really is. One of the biggest things I noticed when I came here is that feeling, when you sit down at your first meeting and you feel like the dumbest person in the room. I actually like that because it tells that for all I know that I'm really in the company of some masterminds, and it's incredible to work in this environment. I really do feel like a mad scientist sometimes. We're just coming up with all these crazy different things that, can you do that? Well, I don't know. Let's find out. And you can. And in fact, and it's not just like you're mixing the red with the green and waiting for it to blow up. You definitely are getting some measurable and quantifiable ways to improve performance. Eliminate some of the overhead, and what in the end what we're doing is we're making lives better for our customers. That's kind of what we do. We don't want you to have to worry about this. You send your data off, you get it back. You don't have to worry about anything in between.
And it's exciting to see that we can allow that from within our organization. A lot of places, if there's any of that harebrained idea, let's give it a shot and see what happens, it has to be off the clock or after hours or when you get a minute, and it's not delivered as value nearly as quickly. But because we have just a big incentive to deliver improvements and new features and the ability to execute on new versions and things like that, it really gives us the ability to it's the best way of approaching these problems that customers are coming to us with, and then deliver those to the customer who's got the specific problem, and then those people that we see down the road are going to get there don't have to bang their head against that same wall. We've already cleared that hurdle, and we can deliver that value, and that's really exciting. A lot of companies don't want to spend their best and brightest resources on hunches. They want to spend their time delivering value, and we can afford to do it that way because of the way we're structured, and that's really exciting because that value gets put in front of customers much more quickly and gets to be spread across a larger customer base, and more of the technology world benefits from those sorts of kind of forays into the what if.
So I think it's interesting when you talk about that. So one of the many career paths I've had in my life is I was a bouncer at a nightclub for several years back in Virginia Beach, Virginia. We won't get into all the stories of that because that could be a whole other podcast.
Yeah, we might have a show on this though.
Yeah.
So the after hours.
But oh yeah, definitely. But one of the things that the bar manager there said that every bar has 4 walls and cold beer, and the thing that makes people go from one to the other is the people that work there, right? The environment that you set up. At Rackspace, we can say, every company has servers and network cables, right? But what really sets us apart is the people that work here, and the ability that we have to set up an environment that they can really thrive, that they can really explore their creativity and coming up with creative solutions and new products, and then rewarding them for that. And the people really here are the asset, more than anything else. And so when you're in an environment where you can really leverage that, the possibilities are limitless. They really are. And so when especially here, we're up in the Frost Tower in downtown Austin, which literally from where I'm at, I'm facing the river and I'm seeing like the kayakers go by. We have a good spot here where we can just get the minds together and come up with crazy stuff and see if it works or not. We have enough experience here that most of the time that we can make the crazy stuff work. It's pretty fun.
Well, there's let's get into some of this crazy stuff that works. We've talked about reasons that you might adopt the technology of Mongo, but now we have a variety of ways that you can get that implemented with ObjectRocket. So let's talk through some of the deciding factors around we're going to move from this more platform multi-tenant environment to the dedicated world and how that can deliver specific value. Let's talk about that decision-making matrix. What is there that would help push someone one direction or the other?
Certainly, there are a lot of factors to consider. We'll go down kind of. I'm going to start at the top of the rack and go down. We've had several customers who switched to a dedicated instance because they have high network traffic. We had one of our customers that it was last year, not in 2015, but 2014 for Black Friday. They had extremely large amount of traffic coming in and coming out of database servers. Such that they consumed probably, I think, 80% of the network switch they were on, with not a lot of room for growth. So one of their driving factors for moving into a dedicated setup was having their own switches. It means they had their own bandwidth that's straight from our core router. So they weren't actually they weren't taking up anyone else's space. They had plenty of room to grow. And then this Black Friday, you saw they had no problems at all. Everything came through quite well. They weren't picking up any bandwidth issues or anything like that. So that's one of the driving factors. When we say you get a full stack, you literally get from the switch all the way down. Another of the factors that people have had is they need the ability to be able to add more storage add more shards in a very quick manner and in a very specific manner. If you have a specific one-off setup, and that's one of the things we kind of do here is if you have a one-off, I need this. We'll do that. We don't really have we don't have many restrictions on staying in one specific box or anything like that. Sometimes that can take a little bit longer if you're in a multi-tenant setup. If you need to have that kind of customizability, if that's a word, and you need to have it very quickly, we can set that up in your dedicated setup so that every time you add an instance or add a shard, it's going to be like that every single time. The other thing that we've also found for people if they have for security reasons, a lot of times larger companies they have a big hang-up with using third-party as-a-service providers because of a multi-tenant environment. They can't guarantee that their stuff is segregated from anyone else's. Casters delivers that, like our dedicated solutions delivers that. You can say this is yours from the router to your backup server. This is all yours. You have to share with anyone else. And that actually causes a lot of the higher ups at larger corporations or corporations that have a lot of these compliance issues. It lets them sleep at night. I think the other big thing that you have, sometimes it's kind of the standard things you have. It's like noisy neighbor. This configuration is very CPU intensive, or we have some customers that they throw things in batches, and then if they both happen to be in the same server or something like that, or within the same shard, they're going to hotspot, and then you have performance issues. Well, we can spread that out if you have a dedicated solution. Another big one is disaster recovery. We have several customers that need to have a presence in multiple data centers. A lot of times for those compliance issues, if you have a dedicated setup in one data center, we can replicate that dedicated setup in another data center, and we can have them talk directly one to another for disaster recovery purposes. And again, if people have to check some of those boxes for using a third-party service, that helps them out a whole lot.
This additional layer just makes the conversation around tailoring a approach to a set of needs a lot easier. When you can say, yeah, I realize compliance is a big deal for your specific needs. We can deliver that. It's just going to require this pivot from that multi-tenant to this dedicated approach. Then that can be a much more valuable conversation and partnership as those sets of options continue to expand. You mentioned that customers can bring in requirements and say this is what we need. A lot of times, at least the way I've seen a lot of those conversations go, it's a little bit self-prescribed. Like, I looked at WebMD and I've got cancer, so chemo me. But you don't really get that value of going to a doctor and saying, hey, I feel sick, there's these things going on, I really rather feel like I have plenty of energy and can breathe easily and all the other things. And let the doctor go in and say, well, I think it might be this and this, let's make these changes, and that may be all we need to do, and that's the least painful and if that doesn't work, then we can go further. And could you talk a little bit about the conversation that you will have with a customer that kind of delivers that value directly, instead of just being an order taker or a pharmacist who says, okay, so X months ago, you can actually go in and be more prescriptive and intentional about the way you scope out customer solution based on their needs.
Certainly, and we often the initial conversations that we have about an architecture are usually drastically different than what actually gets implemented for that very reason. Somebody sees a bulletin, somebody reads something in CIO magazine or whatever it is, and they say, I need this. One of the big things, let's say for a great example, is when MongoDB 3.0 first came out, it came out with a slew of features that were very much untested. We had a lot of customers who were asking, hey, I really want to do this right now. And we had to have the conversation with them and say, hey, I understand this looks appealing, but here are the reasons why we don't think you should do this right now. Sometimes it's bugs. Sometimes it's, the solution that they want isn't best for them. And we can have the conversation with them, and we can say, all right, this is what we found out. If you're using capped collections, you certainly wouldn't want to use RocksDB as your storage engine, because RocksDB doesn't work well with capped collections, even though it has these other advantages. And so a lot of times we'll have to just offer expertise. Sometimes we'll have to go ahead and throw up a test environment for them so they can see, all right, we're going to look at this, and this is not going to work. But we will definitely, if in the end they say, hey, we really want to go with this, we will let you do it, but it will definitely be over strenuous protest, because at the idea of saying, hey, we tell you that these things may result later on. In the case where that's happened, it usually comes to fruition. We always, being wily as we are, we don't have anything set up that will let you completely destroy yourself. So we've been able to recover sometimes when some of these setups that they've asked for haven't exactly been stable, and then get them on the better solution. And it kind of it's a battle sometimes that has to go back and forth. There's always the push and pull between the new feature and the stability that we have to wage every day. But I think in the end, when we have these conversations with the customer, starting from very early to ongoing ones, where we have where we're talking to our larger customers daily, weekly or daily sometimes, where we're always kind of looking at what needs to be done. We're reevaluating everything constantly, and we can say, all right, now it is time for you to move into a dedicated solution because you have these needs. Or we maybe want to get you on this later version, or so a lot of times we'll even make suggestions even to on their their application, things like error handling or how to handle timeouts, driver configurations, and we have no problem with making those suggestions because we have the expertise to do so. But what we want in the end is for their experience to be as painless as possible. Sometimes that involves changes on our end, sometimes it involves changes on their end. But we can have those conversations, and we enjoy having those conversations because, the happier people are, the better life is for everybody. So.
Yeah, there's definitely kind of a risk when someone comes up with the bright idea of doing something that they came up with. I know that there's some features that my wife would like to have on her phone. She's like, "Well, just root it." Well, yeah, you'll get the feature that you want on your phone by rooting it, but there's a cascade effect that you don't want that really we should avoid. And luckily, I was able to persuade her not to do so. But that's a conversation that can be difficult to have, but you better have that conversation with someone who knows what they're talking about, and the expertise on offer from ObjectRocket is certainly well informed. And I know as new versions come out and as new hot technologies and features come out, it's always compelling to go out into the world and see that one guy who was able to do this really fantastic thing, talking about that feature he was able to add or the performance gain he was able to get or whatever. and he's some edge case who doesn't really care about the thing that you care about. Your needs are a little bit different. And being able to air all that out and put all the cards on the table and say, here are my requirements, just gives us a clearer picture of how we can make the best recommendation, tailor that solution to you the most ideal way. And that's really going to be something that's best for the company, because like you said, you'll know when it's time for that to go prime time and get baked into a solution. Once it's been vetted and those trade-off, timing can be right to say, okay, that feature that you asked us about a month ago, a quarter ago, or a release ago, now it's ready for us to go ahead and bake in. I know you weren't excited for us to say, we're going to wait, but now that we've satisfied ourselves through our testing, it's time for you to go ahead and roll that in, and it can give you that kind of checks and balances of getting that value as soon as possible and not totally shooting yourself in the foot if you don't have to. At the end of the day, our goal generally at Rackspace is to make sure that customers go into each decision eyes wide open, that they know the pros and cons of each step that they take, and all we can do is educate really on you can do that. You can drive your car as long as you want without an oil change. There's some results. Eventually, it won't go well for you. I do recommend you get your oil changed at least every X 1,000 miles. But you can do whatever you want. It's your car. It's your site. It's your app. Our recommendation would be this. And then you can move forward knowing what the results of that decision would be. But it's certainly valuable to have that whole team of experts always looking, kicking tires, testing, verifying, so that you're not going too long without getting that value.
Yeah, that reminds me of what I do after work today.
We keep talking about new technology, and there's one that I think we would be remiss not to go over, and that's WiredTiger. It's a storage engine that was released as part of Mongo 3.0. And so now WiredTiger was originally just a pluggable one. It was developed independently that you could kind of use MongoDB's API to plug it into yours. It wasn't the easy solution to wrench in there, but it was included as part of Mongo 3.0. WiredTiger put in a slew of fantastic new features. You had things like compression, using either Snappy or zlib. You've got document level locking. Before, Mongo was either database locking or collection level locking. So you'd have a lot of things blocking, waiting to write if it was in the same collection. So that's gone. It's got journaling. It's got checksums. It's got everything operates in memory and now has a separate cache away from the rest of Mongo just for the storage engine. So everything basically operates as fast as you have memory for. The one thing I want to talk about too with the compression is that you have two options. You got Snappy or zlib. Snappy runs a bit faster than zlib, so if you want more performance but still compression, if you just need to mash it as small as possible, then zlib is probably your answer. It uses a little more CPU, but it still compresses a lot more. And then you can also compress your indexes. From what we've seen with WiredTiger and a vast majority of the use cases out there, WiredTiger is outperforming mmap, which is the original storage engine, is outperforming mmap, several times over, up to 8 times as fast, with no other changes. And a large part of that is due to that in-memory caching. It is a game changer in MongoDB. And so one of the things that I think was important to note is that a lot of the other providers out there, I mean, we were reading blog posts, and we were reading press statements saying that we're not going to use WiredTiger for XYZ because we haven't really vetted it. Well, as soon as it came out in a release candidate, we were already in the labs blowing it up in every possible way, getting in and out there, trying to find every way that it's going to screw you over, and then finding every way to fix that, finding the tuning parameters, finding how it's going to work in our architecture, like what do we need to do to make this work. We had it had a vast majority of work done by a lot of the engineers here. Kenny Gorman, one of the ObjectRocket's founders, actually did a talk that was used by MongoDB about WiredTiger. So after all that was said and done, we were the first provider to actually offer WiredTiger as an option for your MongoDB setup. And as people have moved over and converted to it, their performance has taken off. It has been just night and day. So yeah, it is definitely a game changer. In Mongo 3.2, it becomes the default storage engine, so it's on my default. There are some caveats that we had to worry about that, like it requires more memory than before. Like if you had a small instance and not enough memory, you can't do that with WiredTiger. And chances are, if you had the smaller instances, you wouldn't need it anyways. And Map V1 will be just fine for you. But it's just it has really been something that we're in the process of a lot of customers who the use cases it fits for. Having the conversations with them to switch over to that, and as MongoDB goes on, you're going to see that, like I said, become the default. But because we've been using it, a lot of the other providers are kind of behind the ball because they haven't gone through the vetting process that we have already to use it. So they're gonna be far behind where we've already laid our tracks. So.
What's that transition process look like if a customer is saying I've been for long enough and want to make that transition? What does that look like for a customer wanting to step up?
So it depends. If customers are using older versions of Mongo, say previous to 2.6, you're going to have to go through that process to upgrade to Mongo at least 2.6. There's some schema changes, security issues, shell changes that you have to do. At that point, if you want to switch to WiredTiger, it's just as simple as doing a resync of your data. If you're on, if you do an upgrade from 2.6.3, you can literally just upgrade into WiredTiger. If you're on 3 already, what we would do is we would basically do a resync of your data, but we would change the storage engine option in Mongo to WiredTiger, and then resync, and then at that point it resyncs using that storage engine. One of the options that is coming out in the later version of Mongo 3.2 is to have mixed storage engines within one replica set, which gives you the option, for example, if you do secondary read or something like that, you may want a different storage engine than you have in your primary. So if you want to have mmap on your primary, or if you want to have WiredTiger on your primary because you do a lot of writes, but you don't necessarily need that on your secondaries because they're doing all the reads, then you can use that, and it becomes it's one of those features, like I said, that we're going to be testing out here. Like I said, the ability to be able to customize that per customer's needs is invaluable.
I love that you can go in and pair specific sets of features to really tune how you're approaching things. There's a lot of times when using two separate approaches can cover the deficiencies of each. You get both of the benefits, and you start to diminish those fallback, those issues, those problems that come up. So I always like to see when you can pair a couple of different approaches and get the additional value of each with covering each other's pitfalls. Mm-hmm. So you mentioned DR, and I think that's one of the that a lot of the big businesses that haven't necessarily adopted Mongo always thought of, but it's certainly something that is on many people's minds. Anytime there's an outage, anytime there's a network blip, or anything that goes on that might impact customers being able to interact with that environment, that comes into play, whether it's a hot site or a cold site or whatever the case may be. You're definitely going to see that as a high priority, having a DR approach. Can you talk a little bit about what options are now available with this dedicated offering, with setting up a really solid DR approach with Mongo?
Certainly. So if you with a dedicated setup, we can duplicate your entire stack in a different data center. We can have it sync so it's basically as real time as possible over the miles. Sometimes customers want to have that as a delayed slate. They want it 5 minutes offset in case they've uploaded something that's destroyed their database. They obviously don't want that synced, so they want to be able to have the process where they can stop the synchronization and then start running off the data that was a few minutes old, so that they can recover the ones that they've destroyed. And we actually had a customer whose bacon was saved doing that already. So those options are there. We have customers that just sync one database over instead of all of them or all their shards. So they're again, like everything else here, all that's customizable. One of the things we're going to be working on later on, one of the things we're turning wrenches on, is having multi-tenant disaster recovery. So if you have just a shard in a multi-tenant environment that you need to have synchronized, we're working on that. There's been a lot of work behind the scenes on that to get the ObjectRocket network environments to talk one to another in the various data centers. Which is, in order to do that, maintain security and get speed, we'd have to get new hardware in there. Mongo does not like to run over slow connections, so it's been an effort between ObjectRocket and our network teams and all the people in DC Ops to really bring that one together. And I believe now it's available in all our continental U.S. data centers. I don't think you can DR into London yet, but that's something we're working on. So.
Great.
Well, I think a lot of what you mentioned comes down to a clear picture of what your priorities are, going in and saying this is what we need, this is the absolute requirement, and then the check down from there of stack ranking your priorities. A 5-minute delay could be really valuable for one customer, and then just having the one component that's replicated and the rest of it's not as important. All of those conversations come down to having really clear priorities on what's absolutely needed for the business to run well, and what you're willing to spend to achieve those sets of requirements. So anytime you're talking about stepping into a DR, a type of environment, it's really important to have a clear picture of what the absolute requirement is, and then what you're willing to spend to get those nice to haves after that, so that you can have a clear idea of how far you want to go, how deep that conversation needs to go, and where step 1, step 2, and step 3 need to be. And those conversations are important to have in-house before you bring in whoever that partner is. But once you have those clear pictures, sharing them up front with the people that are helping you architect and design that next step can be really valuable, because it's really going to color and shape the approach to know what's the most important thing to us, what's the absolute must-have MVP next piece, and then from there you can add to it as available or necessary. But you have to have a clear picture of what that's going to be before that conversation can really yield the value that it is intended to have.
Absolutely. I think one of the things that I think our strengths as an organization are listening to the feedback we get. Sometimes it's important not always to figure out why people choose you, but why people don't choose you. Right? We need to know, like, hey, we need these features because people are asking for them, or we need to be able to do this, or we need to do that. That kind of feedback is important, from not just from our current customers, but people we want to make our customers. There's a lot of things that they can do out there. A lot of things. You can move your data all over the place. One of the things we're working on, which I don't know if I can be horrendously specific about, but one of the things people want to do is they want to be able to make their Mongo talk to other data storage formats, and that's one of the things we're working on. So, stay tuned for that. I think we'll probably be talking about that in a later podcast. But we're definitely.
Okay, go on.
It's curious as well.
Yeah, we're definitely losing some sleep over that, but it's gonna be pretty sweet when that comes out. But it's just.
You should have set up for a little later on.
Yeah, but it's one of those things where we're responding to what people need. It's like, hey, I really need this to do this, and that's what we'd like to do. It's like, hey, all right, well, we'll do that. I want your money. We'll take that.
Well, and being a successful business is a requirement for a good customer. I mean, if you're not successful and you're failing, it's going to be very difficult for it to be any value to anybody. We want to be partners in success. So as a company comes to us with a set of requirements, we want to help make that as successful as possible, because that's going to keep that business in business and keep that partnership that we established going. And that's valuable for everyone. The end consumer gets value from our customers' product, that company grows because they have an efficient and performant solution, and then that situation just builds a deeper relationship with Rackspace, ObjectRocket, that customer, because we are partners in developing that value for the end consumer. So we want to be as big a part of that as possible, so that the end result is absolutely outstanding.
Absolutely. I think when we're talking, I think with the other place where we're making a lot of strides is we're listening not just the big customers who have been with us for a while, but a lot of the people who are up and coming. It's like, hey, I need a place to host my stuff for this app. Well, what do you need to do that? Because does our current infrastructure do, or do you need some? Do we need? Is there enough people that need something a little bit different that we can start architecting a different solution to handle those needs? And that's one of the things we're also working on now, is trying to make it so that we're not just here for the people that have 500 500 gig shards. The people that have 5 gig shards, they need love too, and we want them definitely to be able to have their ease of use and their speed and all that performance. So we've had the conversations, we've gone to the meetups, we've gone to the conventions, we've gone to the incubators and said, hey, what do you guys need? And so those are the things we're working on, and I've made light of it by saying I want your money, but that's kind of what it is. We want your business. We want you to trust us. What is it that we need to do? Is there a feature we're not offering? Do we have a deficiency somewhere? Then we want to fix that. That's what it is. We want to be the place where you stick your data and you don't have to worry about it.
Well, and we want our customers to be successful. I mean, I think that's the main thing there, is that we want to do what we can to enable their businesses to succeed. If their business doesn't succeed, they stop being our customers. So we really need to make sure everything we can to keep them up and running. And so that's you mentioned heading out to conferences and listening and meetups and everything. As we start to wrap this up, I do kind of want to give you a bit of an opportunity. If you know any off the top of your head, where you're going to be out and about, you, the rest of the team, anybody, can you kind of give us an idea of where we can find you out in the wild?
Certainly. We do host various meetups for Python, Mongo, Elasticsearch. We're working on Ansible meetups here in our office at the Frost Tower. If you haven't seen the new office, we were in the same building as Facebook before. This one is even nicer than that. So if you get a chance, if you just want to come and explore, come check out the new digs. They're nice. We have we got the best beer around. I'm just saying,
Houndstooth Coffee is just downstairs.
It is. And so there's those for larger conferences. I and several other of the team are going to be at Solve in New York City. So if you get to go out there, you should definitely check us out. We'll be easy to find. I'm not hard to lose in a crowd. And then the next one will be at Elasticon in San Francisco. And both of these are next month. Elasticsearch is one of our other products that we provide here. Another service that we started last year and has just been wildly successful. So there's a lot of interest in that. So we're glad to engage you talking about Elasticsearch. We're also at Redis meetups, and a lot of expertise there. So we definitely look for us around. You'll see us in our t-shirts, because we usually tend to wear the ObjectRocket stuff, just so people will ask the question. But yeah, those are the big ones. Obviously, MongoDB World, which I think is in June, you'll see us. But aside from the big conferences, come to the small meetups. I think I always get a lot more out of the small meetups when I'm talking to people than I do the big conferences. Because small meetups, you really get a chance to get to know somebody, get to know what they need in a lot better way than you can the conferences. Conferences tend to be more about volume, which is also important. But those conversations tend to be shorter. I like the long ones. You get a much better idea of what's going on.
That's great. So yeah, so Drew and I are going to be, both of us are going to be at Solve, not next week, but the week after that. So we'll definitely there. We're going to be broadcasting live, so we'll probably pull you in to say hey to everybody again. Yeah, so we love these opportunities to speak to our customers and to learn from them, and I know that that's one of the things that you were speaking about, just trying to listen to what our customers need to be successful. So just one of those other opportunities to do that. and then especially at the larger conferences where you can that are more focused on on NoSQL, on big data, things like that. As you are learning more in depth about products, and as you are presenting and teaching other people about the products, I think those are great areas where you can start to share best practices even further and deeper, and really really connect with people there. So great to see you out there in the public, and like you mentioned, the local meetups are definitely the way to go to get in and get a very up close and personal interaction there. So yeah, so check those out. If come find us, or we'll find you.
Yeah.
I can't bet that.
Where else? I don't know.
Yep. All right. See, we are right at the end of the hour, so I do kind of want to start to wrap this up. Tim, thank you so much for spending a week with us, or a week.
Oh man, pour us some coffee. Pour some coffee.
Yeah, it's been a short hour, but so we've spent the hour here. We can edit that out, can't we, Tyler? We can. So we'll edit that out. But yeah, so thank you for spending this time with us. I've learned a lot. I kind of sat back and listened to you and Drew talk this time, and a lot of great information there. So definitely appreciate that. Yeah, go check out ObjectRocket and Rackspace out at Solve and at all the conferences and meetups. And next week we're back with a discussion that actually really nicely pigtails off of this. So we're going to talk about should you go with a as a service solution or host your own. And so we talked quite a little bit about that with Tim just now. We're going to talk more generally about cloud and dedicated and as a service solutions. So we're going to talk about that. We just mentioned that we're going to be heading out to New York City for Solve the week after that, and then on the 18th, I guess that's 3 weeks from now, we're going to be talking to our friends at Cloudflare about HTTP2. So big important conversation there. Lots of efficiencies that can be gained with that technology. So they're going to share a little bit about how they're helping our customers enable that technology. Drew, you got any other announcements? Does that wrap it up?
No other announcements. Come see us in New York.
Exactly.
If you're in that area, definitely come check out the event.
All right. Well, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up and say thanks, everybody, for watching, and we will see you next time. Take it easy, everybody.
See you.
Thanks again, Tim.
Hey, my pleasure. We'll see you.